At one point in time, I was susceptible to hatred. Not anymore. I do, however, have the ability to feel disgust and profound disdain. Most VTuber corpus produced that in me, since I was made aware of the existence of Hololive long before the first EN generation. I've seen them as an unnecessary intermediary, and I still believe that a person whose job is to sit on a PC and play games does not need a corpo. This describes a lot of VTubers. Hell, it describes me. But I have learned through the course of my life that I deviate from the norm, sometimes a little, sometimes a lot. And even if I don't feel like I need a corpo, others might. Many times I wondered how VShojo made money. It seemed too good to be true, but whatever dark magic they were doing, it must work because the company is still around, has been around for a couple of years now, and the talent seemed happy. Right? Then Matara bailed. But that was because of Bricky's business. Matara had a different source of revenue, and VShojo didn't want anything to do with that. Right? Then Giga and Sen bailed. At that point, I was paying attention. Sen was a vocal ride or die for VShojo. And then this comes out, and so I am making this video. The collapse of VShojo is a great thing to happen. Plenty of people were freed from an unsustainable and exploitative corporation that was mismanaged to the ground. More companies like this in all industries should collapse the same way. The fact that it needed to happen is the real tragedy. From this point onward, in this video, I will channel and adapt what I have gotten from years of learning from Marxists and Professor Richard Wolff, who is an economist of the Marxian tradition with decades of experience teaching Marxism and actually applying what I'm about to describe to other industries and businesses, alongside my own understanding and knowledge of the VTuber business, environment, and culture. I've been watching some VTubers react and talk about this whole debacle. Some have mentioned they are greedy because that's how the world works. But that's not the case. That is an element of capitalism, and humanity lived for thousands of years without capitalism. I believe in a world where these things do not happen, cannot happen, and even if they could happen, it is in everyone's interests that they do not happen. I am making this video to attempt to explain, to the best of my limited ability, the idea of how a collection of talents / streamers, for example, the VShojo orphans or Bichiban, or the new faces wink wink like Saba, Nimi, Doki, Mint, Dubi, Mogu, Sayu, etc., could do away with the nasty contradiction that is having the shot caller and budget manager not be the one actually streaming or working to make the industry function, working art, working music, working model creation, working concept art, etc. I am definitely missing stuff here. I'm not really an insider. I don't even have a model myself. I've never tried to acquire one, and I will most likely never try to acquire one, but you know enough to fill in the blanks. The solution I propose is worker co-ops. I believe this model of enterprise would suit VTuber corpus perfectly because of the following. In a worker co-op, a properly implemented democratic one, what happened to VShojo couldn't happen. Hey, let's vote to embezzle $500,000 to charity and completely pulverize our company the moment that comes out. Deliberation lasts for about 3 seconds. And everyone is against that. What a surprise. And so the funds are not mismanaged. The IDF, which by the way is a terrible acronym, perhaps it should be changed so that it doesn't share an acronym with a terrorist organization, receives a very generous donation and the company lives to see another day. Let me begin by describing a normal company. We're going to use VShojo as an example for entirely topical reasons. In a normal company, the capitalists, aka the investors and the CEOs and their executives, get the bulk of the profit and the sole control on how to use said profit, and only spare as little as possible to pay the workers. You could see that reflected in the fallout of VShojo since the employees were paid, but the talents were legally recognized as contractors, and so they could go without paying them for a while, up until the point where this happened. Obviously, I don't know the inner workings of the economic disaster that was VShojo, But I can make a guess based on what I've heard and analyzing the socioeconomic situation of the time. The company surged during the zenith of tech bro venture capitalist fund influx. Crypto bros with a lot of money and not a lot of dignity. And that coupled with COVID caused VShojo management to have wildly unrealistic perceptions of the amount of money they could have at their disposal. As time went on, COVID got less bad, venture capitalist tech bro money dried out or started to demand a return on their investment as the vampires they are. And people started going out and seeing less streams. The money started to dwindle, causing VShojo to be in the red. This caused all the grievances mentioned by all the talents, chief among them Iron Mouse's IDF donation going poof. Why attribute to malice what can be explained reasonably by incompetence? And why do I believe this? Because the extraordinary amounts of money swiped from all the talent cannot be blown on cocaine and hookers without killing someone long before that money runs out. I don't believe someone pocketed it and ran away. I believe it was sucked dry by vampires through the incompetent leadership that took loans to pay previous loans. In fact, as I was about to start recording this, it came to my attention that Gunrun, through the official account in that Nazi-owned social network, came clean. Nothing surprising to me. But what actually differentiates a worker co-op? Unlike in a traditional company where one share is one vote, in a worker co-op the workers, as some of you watching may have already figured out, are the ones making the decisions through democracy. What to produce, how to produce, where to produce, who to commission, what to do with the profits. One worker, one vote. The vote of the owners is worth exactly as much as the vote of Annie, the concept artist. Democracy at work. Logic dictates that a worker will not vote against their own material interests, since if they do, they face the harshest face of the society they live in, but that's yet again a topic for another video. A factory worker will not vote away his job to outsource it to Somalia. A streamer will not vote to train a Quebble Cup style aberration to take her job and her streaming revenue from her. With a collective of Bishojo orphans, both in favor of throwing $1 million party / mixer with the sword of Damocles hanging over their heads, the way Bishojo repeatedly did, I highly doubt so. In fact, it is likely they wouldn't be in that threatening position in the first place. Of course, the streamers themselves couldn't be the only members of the cooperative. Their whole structure of support, artists, animators, people who rig, 3D modelers, composers, needs to also be part of the democratic enterprise. The only ones exempt from this system should be the managers, those who would normally be the kings and have disproportionate power in a vertical structure. The workers hire the managers in a worker co-op, and every year or so their performance would be reviewed, and the workers would vote to renew or sever the contract with the manager. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine kicking out that incompetent guy that you have almost certainly met throughout your work life if you have worked a couple of jobs? And if you haven't, give it some time, you will meet them. Such a model already exists in the VTuber industry, surprising or not, with high-profile talent such as Dokibird being open about having a manager as an employee. So it stands to reason that this model could be scaled up so that a team of managers could work for a team of talent, and the talent could pay their salaries. If this model sounds unrealistic or too good to be true, well, it's already a reality. It is a proven successful model in many other areas and industries, a model that has been able to outcompete traditional capitalist structures, and most importantly, a model that reduces inequality at work, improves the quality of life of workers, and it has multiple other benefits that will become obvious the more you study the idea of democracy at work. I have no intention to form such a company, since I have already mentioned that corporations are not for me, and besides I have no funds, no savings, no budget, and no interest to submit myself to modern slavery to acquire funds, especially not after seeing what happens as a direct result of that. The topic of the video. And besides, I know I am not the right one to undertake such an endeavor. I fear my incompetence could result in a VShojo, slang term for the ultimate intertwining of incompetence and depth resulting in, well, a VShojo. You know what happened there. And I don't want to let people down. I even hesitated to make this video, feeling under-equipped and not skilled or knowledgeable enough to make this analysis slash commentary, but Mike from PA ended up pushing me in this direction. I made this because I felt like I needed to make it, and because I felt only I could make it. If you can make this video, but better, by all means, please go for it, because my primary interest is for this idea, this vision, to reach those who can adapt it to the VTuber industry. I am making this video as a fan, as a person who enjoys the industry, as an unsurprised yet horrified onlooker of the destructive effects of the traditional enterprise structure, as a worker who has felt firsthand the cruelty of the system we live in, but being forced to dispense it and being on the receiving end of it, and as a person who believes a better future is both possible and within reach. All it takes is to grasp it. The Cinder backstabbing from a couple of months ago was more painful to witness. Betrayal hurts because you never expect it. When it comes to the VShojo situation, I had a good opinion of the company, but that's just because the company had excellent um, public face. You know, no one ever suspected VShojo would go the way that it did. Um, when I saw that Iron Mouse video at the beginning of the week, I I was very surprised. I was like, what exactly happened with VShojo that caused my Iron Mouse to leave? And then I watched the video and then it became clear. Um, so yeah, I'm horrified, but I'm not disappointed, nor surprised, nor hurt. Um, as a closing statement, if you found this idea interesting, learn more from the experts that have brought it to life already. Corporación Mondragon and Richard Wolf are two names I can point to. Thank you.